The stars looked different from this part of the galaxy. Commander Ethan Wright stood at the main viewport of the exploration vessel Horizon, hands clasped behind his back. 6 months into their mission to seek out intelligent life, and finally, they had found something, or rather something had found them. "Commander, they're hailing us again," said Communications Officer Paul Russell, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Ethan nodded. "Put them through." The screen flickered to life, revealing a creature with pale blue skin, large oval eyes, and no visible nose. Instead, 2 small slits pulsed gently on a smooth face. This was the 3rd time they had spoken to the alien who called himself High Commander Vrextile of the Zalaxian Empire. "Human vessel," the alien's voice came through the translator slightly metallic but understandable. "You will follow our escort to the primary docking station. Any deviation will be considered hostile action." "Understood, High Commander," Ethan replied, keeping his voice calm and professional. "We look forward to peaceful discussions." The screen went dark. Ethan turned to face his crew on the bridge. 5 faces looked back at him, each showing a different mix of fear and excitement. "Well," said Dr. Olivia Martinez, the ship's lead. "Scientist, first contact, just like we trained for." She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, but her hands were shaking slightly. Lieutenant Kevin Morris, head of security, checked his sidearm for the 10th time in an hour. "I don't like how they just appeared out of nowhere. Their cloaking technology is way beyond ours." "That's why we're here," Ethan reminded him, "to learn, to exchange knowledge." The Horizon was small by space exploration standards, just 20 crew members in total. NASA had designed it for speed and maneuverability rather than military capability. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. "Dr. Martinez, Lieutenant Morris, you'll join me in the first meeting," Ethan decided. "The rest of you, standard protocol. If we don't report back on schedule, we send the emergency signal and get the hell out of here," finished Navigator Ben Collins with a tight smile. "Don't worry, Commander. We know the drill." As the Horizon followed the sleek Zalaxian ships toward what appeared to be a massive space station, Ethan studied the alien vessels. They moved with incredible precision, their hulls shimmering with an iridescent material unlike any metal he'd seen before. Dr. Martinez joined him at the viewport, her tablet in hand. "Their technology is at least a century ahead of ours," she whispered. "Maybe more." "Let's hope they're friendly then," Ethan replied. The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly, Ethan thought, as if the Zalaxians had done this many times before with many different ships. As the airlock sealed and the pressure equalized, Lieutenant Morris distributed the small universal translator devices to the away team. They were experimental technology, but Earth's best linguists and programmers had created them for exactly this purpose. "Remember," Ethan told his team as they prepared to exit, "we represent all of humanity now." The airlock doors slid open to reveal 4 Zalaxians waiting for them. All wore fitted uniforms of a silvery material with various colored insignias that presumably denoted rank. 3 carried what were obviously weapons, long, thin rods with glowing tips. "Welcome to Central Station," said the unarmed Zalaxian. Stepping forward, "I am Secondary Commander Keviner. You will follow me to the meeting chamber." The corridors of the station were wide and tall, with curving walls that seemed to glow from within. Other Zalaxians passed them, some stopping to stare at the humans with their large, unblinking eyes. "They're all so tall," whispered Dr. Martinez, the shortest Zalaxian they'd seen was still over 7 feet tall. After walking for nearly 10 minutes, they arrived at a large circular door that spiraled open at their approach. Inside was a room with a round table and several high-backed chairs. High Commander Vrextile was already seated, along with 4 other Zalaxians who wore elaborate insignias on their uniforms. "Commander Wright," Vrextile said, rising to his full height of nearly 8 feet. "We have many questions about your species and your purpose in this sector." "As do we," Ethan replied with a small bow, which seemed to please the aliens. "We come from a planet called Earth on a mission of peaceful exploration." "Sit," Vrextile gestured to the empty chairs. "Refreshment." will be provided. As they sat, smaller Zulaxians entered carrying trays with crystal containers of a clear liquid and strange blue fruits. This sector, Rextal began, is under the protection of the Zulaxian Empire. We have maintained peace across 12 star systems for over 300 of your Earth years. Ethan nodded. We had no intention of intruding. Our scanning technology detected unusual energy signatures in this region, which we were investigating for scientific purposes. Our quantum fold drives, one of the other Zulaxians said with what might have been pride. You detected the ripples they create in space-time? Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her nerves. Quantum fold? You've achieved practical space folding? The Zulaxians exchanged looks that Ethan couldn't interpret. Your species has not yet developed this technology? Rextal asked. No, Ethan admitted. Our ship uses advanced fusion propulsion, but we travel through space, not fold it. This caused a ripple of what seemed like communication among the Zulaxians. Subtle movements of their head slits and fingers that the translators didn't pick up. Drink, Rextal finally said, gesturing to the clear liquid. It is customary to share sustenance during first diplomatic exchanges. Ethan nodded to his team, and they each took a crystal container. The liquid looked like water but smelled faintly bitter. Before they could drink, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. The Zulaxians immediately stood, their postures rigid. Security breach in Sector 7, announced a voice over the station's communication system. Rextal turned to one of his officers. Investigate immediately. The officer hurried out, and Rextal faced the humans again, his large eyes narrowing. You arrived alone? Yes, Ethan confirmed. Just our one ship. Then perhaps this is merely coincidence, Rextal said, but his tone had changed. However, protocol demands caution. You will be escorted to secure quarters until we determine there is no connection. Commander, Lieutenant Morris said quietly, his hand moving subtly toward his sidearm. I don't like this. Easy, Lieutenant, Ethan murmured. To Rextal, he said, we understand your caution, but assure you we have nothing to do with any security issues on your station. That remains to be seen, Rextal replied. With a gesture, 6 armed Zulaxians entered the room. These guards will escort you to appropriate facilities. Your crew on your vessel will also be brought to the station for their safety. That's not necessary, Ethan began, but Rextal cut him off. It is not a request, Commander Wright. The Zulaxian Empire has maintained its position through vigilance. Once we confirm you pose no threat, normal diplomatic relations can resume. Ethan recognized the shift in power. They were no longer guests, but potential threats. We'll cooperate fully, he said, giving Morris a warning glance. We have nothing to hide. As they were led from the room, Dr. Martinez whispered, Do you think it's really a coincidence? Ethan watched the Zulaxian guards, noting their efficient movements and the way they constantly scanned their surroundings. An empire spanning 12-star systems would have enemies. Or maybe this was standard procedure for all first contacts. I don't know, he replied quietly. But I think our first contact just got a lot more complicated. Behind them, High Commander Rextal watched the humans leave, then turned to his remaining officer. Begin analysis of their vessel immediately, and prepare the testing chambers. I want to know everything about these humans before they learn anything more about us. The officer bowed. And the Serpenthex, High Commander? Should it be prepared? Rextal's mouth slits widened slightly in what might have been a smile. Not yet, but keep it ready. 17 species have fallen to it. If these humans prove troublesome, they may become the 18th. 5 days had passed since the humans were placed in detention. The Zulaxians had moved all 20 crew members from the horizon into a large, circular room with small private sleeping areas around the edges. The walls glowed with the same soft light as the rest of the station, but there were no windows and only one door, which was always guarded. Lieutenant Kevin Morris paced the room for the 100th time that day, counting his steps. 37, 38, 30-9... He had a nervous habit of counting when his anxiety rose. And being locked up by aliens had his anxiety at an all-time high. Dr. Olivia Martinez sat cross-legged on the floor, working with one of the translators they had been allowed to keep. She was trying to learn more of the Zulaxian language beyond what the device could translate. "Kevin, please sit down," Commander Ethan Wright said from where he sat with several other crew members. "You're making everyone more nervous." Kevin stopped pacing but remained standing, his fingers tapping against his leg. "It's been 5 days, Commander. They've taken blood samples, scanned readings, and asked us 1,000 questions. When are they going to let us go?" "When they're satisfied we're not a threat," Ethan replied calmly, though he shared the lieutenant's frustration. "Dr. Martinez, any progress?" Olivia looked up from her translator. "Some. Their language has a complex structure of tones that our translators miss. I think there's a whole layer of communication happening that we don't understand." The door to their detention area slid open and 2 Sulaxians entered. One was a scientist they had seen before, wearing a pale green uniform. The other was younger and wore the silver uniform of security personnel. "Greetings, humans," the scientist said. "I am lead researcher Zixtel. Today we will continue our biological compatibility tests." Ethan stood to face them. "We've cooperated with all your tests, researcher Zixtel. When will your leaders be ready to resume diplomatic talks?" The Zulaxian's head slits pulsed slightly. "That is not for me to decide, Commander Wright. High Commander Vrextel will determine when that is appropriate," he gestured to the young guard. "This is Junior Guardian Nixar. He will assist me today." Nixar seemed nervous, his long fingers gripping his weapon too tightly. His large eyes kept darting between the humans as if expecting one to attack. Zixtel placed a container on the central table. "We have brought your daily sustenance. After you consume it, we will proceed with today's examinations." The container held the same food they had been given each day, a blend of synthesized proteins and carbohydrates that tasted bland but provided adequate nutrition. Next to it were cups of clear liquid. As the humans began to eat, Kevin approached Ethan and whispered, "I don't trust the young one. He keeps watching us like we're going to explode." Ethan nodded slightly. "I noticed. Just stay calm and don't make any sudden movements." Across the room, Navigator Ben Collins accidentally dropped his cup, spilling the clear liquid across the floor. The young guard, Nixar, jumped at the sound and raised his weapon. "No threat," Ethan called out quickly, raising his hands. "It was an accident." Zixtel placed a hand on Nixar's arm, lowering the weapon. "Control yourself, Junior Guardian." "They are contained." Nixar lowered his weapon but remained tense. He muttered something to Zixtel that the translators didn't catch. The scientist's response seemed dismissive. Olivia moved closer to Ethan. "Something's wrong. The young one is scared of us, but the scientist isn't concerned at all." After they finished eating, Zixtel approached with a scanning device. "Commander Wright, you and 5 others will come with me for further testing." "What kind of testing?" Ethan asked. "Compatibility with station environments," Zixtel replied vaguely. "It is routine." Ethan selected 5 crew members, including Olivia, but deliberately left Kevin behind. The lieutenant's anxiety made him unpredictable, and Ethan didn't want to risk an incident. As they were let out, Kevin began pacing again, his counting growing louder with each lap around the room. The young guard, Nixar, watched him with increasing agitation. "Stop that noise," Nixar finally ordered. Kevin didn't hear him, lost in his counting ritual. 23, 24, 20-5... I said stop. Nixar raised his voice, stepping closer. Several crew members tried to explain. "He's not being disrespectful," said Communications Officer Paul Russell. "It's a human calming method." Nixar's head slits flared wide, a sign they had learned indicated strong emotion. "You are planning something. I can see it." "No one is planning anything," Paul insisted. "We're just waiting to be released." But Nixar had become convinced that the counting was some kind of code. When Kevin completed another lap and reached 40, Nixar backed toward the door panel and pressed a sequence of buttons. "What are you doing?" Paul asked, alarmed. "Security protocol," Nixar replied, his voice shaking. until senior officers arrive. A soft hissing sound began from vents near the ceiling. Clear liquid sprayed into the room in a fine mist that quickly began to settle on surfaces. What is that? Kevin stopped pacing, suddenly aware of the situation. Containment measure, Nixar said, standing safely beyond the doorway. It will not kill you, it will only keep you still. The liquid collected on the floor and dripped from the ceiling. The crew members moved to the center of the room, trying to avoid it, but soon it was everywhere. Some of it splashed into the drinking cups that still contained the clear liquid they had been given earlier. Paul picked up one of the cups, looking at the slightly diluted liquid. Wait, is this the same as what we've been drinking? Kevin took the cup from him and sniffed it. Smells the same. Maybe a bit stronger. Don't drink it, Paul warned. It could be, but Kevin, driven by his anxiety and curiosity, had already taken a sip. He waited a moment, then shrugged. Taste the same too, just a bit more bitter. The other humans looked at each other in confusion. If this was a security measure meant to incapacitate them, why wasn't it working? Meanwhile, Nixar was watching in horror through the transparent door panel. According to his training, the humans should have been paralyzed within seconds of exposure to the diluted serpenthex. Instead, they were standing in puddles of it, and one had even consumed it directly. When Ethan and the others returned with Zixtal an hour later, they found a scene of confusion. The detention area was wet with clear liquid, and several higher-ranking Zulaxian officers had joined a very distressed Nixar outside the door. What happened here? Ethan demanded. Zixtal stared at the humans inside the room, all still conscious and mobile despite standing in pools of diluted serpenthex. Impossible, he whispered. The highest-ranking Zulaxian officer turned to Zixtal. Is this confirmed? They are completely unaffected? It appears so, Zixtal replied, his scientific curiosity clearly overcoming his shock. Junior Guardian Nixar deployed a standard dose of serpenthex, and they show no signs of paralysis. What is serpenthex? Ethan asked, growing concerned. The Zulaxian officer regarded him with new interest. It is a neurotoxin that has subdued 17 species across this sector, a security measure we have not needed to use in decades. He paused, studying Ethan closely. Until today. Your people should be dead, Commander Wright, Zixtal added with what sounded like admiration. Yet they appear completely unharmed. Inside the room, Kevin took another sip from his cup and grimaced at the bitter taste. Not great, he called out, but I've had worse coffee at the NASA cafeteria. The Zulaxians stared at him in disbelief. The officer turned to Zixtal. High Commander Vrextal must be informed immediately. The humans are immune to our most effective weapon. As they were hurried away, Ethan caught Olivia's eye. Something fundamental had just changed in their relationship with the Zulaxian Empire. What the Zulaxians had trusted as a deadly poison, humans could drink like water. News of the humans' immunity to serpenthex spread quickly through the Zulaxian station. The human crew was moved from detention to more comfortable quarters, though still under guard. Their status had changed from potential threats to fascinating scientific anomalies. Commander Ethan Wright sat across from High Commander Vrextal in a meeting room much nicer than their first encounter. This one had large viewing ports showing the stars outside and comfortable seating designed to accommodate human bodies. Your species continues to surprise us, Commander Wright, Vrextal said, his tone difficult to read through the translator. In 300 years, we have never encountered a species immune to serpenthex. We had no idea we were being poisoned, Ethan replied honestly. Lieutenant Morris just thought it was bitter water. Lead researcher Zixtal stood nearby manipulating a holographic display showing complex molecular structures. It is extraordinary. The compound that makes serpenthex lethal to all known species is metabolized by human liver enzymes as if it were a simple sugar. Dr. Olivia Martinez, who had been invited to this meeting due to her scientific background, leaned forward to study the display. May I ask what exactly serpenthex is? Where does it come from? Zixtal seemed pleased by her interest. It is derived from a plant native to our homeworld. Our ancestors discovered its properties thousands of years ago. It became the foundation of our rise to power. You use poison to conquer other species? Ethan asked, trying to keep judgment from his voice. Vrextel's head slits narrowed. We used superior tactics and technology. Serpenthex was merely a tool that allowed us to subdue aggressive species without prolonged conflict. It saved lives. Olivia pointed to a particular molecule in the display. This structure is similar to caffeine, which humans consume regularly in beverages. Our bodies might process it in a similar way. Yes, Zixtel agreed, excitement evident in his voice. And more fascinating still, preliminary tests suggest it may actually enhance certain cognitive functions in humans. Lieutenant Morris performed better on reflex tests after exposure. Ethan remembered how Kevin had seemed more focused after drinking the contaminated water. His anxiety had notably decreased. So you're saying it's not just harmless to us, but potentially beneficial? It appears so, Zixtel confirmed, in small doses. A Zulaxian officer entered the room and whispered something to Vrextel. The high commander's posture stiffened. Is something wrong? Ethan asked. Vrextel hesitated before answering. Word of your immunity has reached beyond this station. Some of our ... ject worlds are requesting information about humans. Ethan understood the implications immediately. An empire built partly on the threat of a poison would be significantly weakened if word spread about a species immune to it. Commander Wright, Vrextel said formally, I must ask about your intentions. Earth is far from Zolaxian space, correct? Yes, we're the first humans to travel this far. And your people, do they have expansionist goals? Military ambitions in this sector? Ethan shook his head. We're explorers, not conquerors. Earth has no plans for expansion beyond scientific outposts and peaceful contact with other intelligent species. Vrextel and Zixtel exchanged a series of rapid communications in their own language that the translators couldn't keep up with. Finally, Vrextel turned back to Ethan. We propose an arrangement. Your crew will be granted full guest privileges on this station while we establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. In exchange, we ask for discretion regarding your immunity to Serpenthex. You want us to keep it a secret? Ethan clarified. For now. Until we can prepare our allies for this ... development. Ethan considered this. He had no desire to destabilize an empire that, despite its questionable methods, seemed to maintain peace across multiple star systems. I'll need to consult with my crew, but I believe we can agree to those terms. While this meeting took place, Lieutenant Kevin Morris was making a discovery of his own. The Zulaxians had allowed the humans limited access to recreational areas of the station, always under guard. Kevin was in an exercise room, working off his nervous energy by running on a track that circled the perimeter. As he ran, he began to sweat heavily. The Zulaxian guard watching him suddenly backed away, making a strange hissing sound. Kevin stopped running. Are you okay? He asked the guard. The guard's skin had developed raised bumps where Kevin's sweat had accidentally splashed him when running past. Your bodily secretions, the guard said, voice strained. They cause irritation. Kevin looked at the droplets of sweat on the floor, then at the guard's reaction. I'm sorry, I didn't know. He quickly grabbed a towel to wipe himself dry, but the incident stuck in his mind. Later, when he rejoined the other crew members, he pulled Dr. Martinez aside and told her what had happened. Interesting, Olivia said quietly, making mental notes. Their biology is as alien to us as ours is to them. We should document this, but keep it between us for now, Kevin nodded. Do you think the commander has realized what this means? What? What means? We drink their poison like water, and our sweat burns their skin, Kevin said. If there's ever a conflict... Olivia put a hand on his arm. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. We're here to make friends, not enemies. Back on Earth, NASA officials were growing concerned about the lack of regular communications from the horizon. The ship's last routine message had mentioned making contact with an advanced alien civilization, but details were sparse. Following protocol, they began preparations for a second mission, Captain Lisa Freeman was selected to lead this mission aboard the exploration vessel Pathfinder. Her orders were simple: locate the horizon and establish whether the crew needed assistance. The ship would be ready to launch within 2 weeks. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of Zolaxian territory, news traveled despite the High Command's efforts to contain it. On a mining planet called Drozik, the native population had lived under Zolaxian rule for generations. Their resistance had been crushed decades ago after their leaders were executed with serpenthex during a peace conference. The planet's elder, Kraz, listened carefully to the whispered rumors. Creatures called humans who could drink serpenthex like water. Creatures the mighty Zolaxians suddenly treated with respect instead of dominance. Find out everything you can about these humans, Kraz told his most trusted advisors. They may be the key to our freedom. Back on the Zolaxian station, Ethan stood at a viewport looking out at the stars, wondering how this unexpected turn of events would affect humanity's first steps into the wider galaxy. What had started as a simple exploration mission had become something far more complex. Their unique biology had given humans an advantage no one could have predicted, and now they were caught in the middle of galactic politics they barely understood. "Commander," Olivia said, joining him at the viewport. "Do you think we did the right thing, agreeing to keep quiet about the serpenthex?" Ethan sighed. "For now. But I have a feeling the secret won't stay secret for long. And when it gets out, everything will change." In his private chambers, High Commander Vrextel reviewed reports from across the Empire with growing concern. The humans' immunity to serpenthex was just the beginning. If the tests were correct, there were other biological incompatibilities that could prove even more significant. And worse, rumors were already spreading despite his efforts. The Zolaxian Empire had faced many challenges in its long history, but never one quite like this, a species that turned their greatest weapon into a mere beverage. Vrextel feared that the day the humans arrived might eventually be remembered as the beginning of the end for Zolaxian dominance of the stars. 2 weeks had passed since the discovery of human immunity to serpenthex. The crew of the Horizon now moved freely around certain sections of the Zolaxian station, though always under observation. Commander Ethan Wright used this time to learn as much as possible about the Zolaxian Empire and its complex relationships with other species. Ethan sat in what the Zolaxians called a knowledge center, similar to a library but filled with holographic displays instead of books. He was reading about the Empire's history when an alert sounded throughout the station. "Attention all personnel," a voice announced in the Zolaxian language, immediately followed by a translation. "Unknown vessel approaching. Security protocols activated." Ethan hurried to find Dr. Olivia Martinez and Lieutenant Kevin Morris, who were in a nearby recreation area. "Something's happening," he told them. "Another ship has arrived." Kevin's eyes widened. "You think it's from Earth? A rescue mission?" "Maybe. We haven't been able to send clear messages home about our situation." They were escorted back to their quarters by Zolaxian guards who seemed more tense than usual. Through the viewport in their common area, they could see a ship approaching the station. It was smaller than the Horizon, but had the familiar NASA design. "That's the Pathfinder," Olivia said, recognizing the ship class. "They must have sent it to look for us when we didn't report in on schedule." An hour later, High Commander Vrextel requested Ethan's presence in the docking bay. Ethan brought Olivia and Kevin with him, insisting they were needed for proper diplomatic protocol. When they arrived, they saw a group of humans in NASA uniforms being greeted by Zolaxian officials. At the front stood a woman with short gray hair and the confident posture of someone used to command. "Captain Lisa Freeman," she introduced herself when she saw Ethan. "NASA sent us to find out what happened to the Horizon. Your communications suddenly became very vague." "That's a long story, Captain," Ethan replied. "But we're all safe. In fact, we've made some rather surprising discoveries." High Commander Vrextel stepped forward. "Captain Freeman, welcome to Central Station. Your arrival is unexpected." Lisa looked a tall alien up and down without showing any sign of intimidation. "When an exploration crew makes first contact and then stops sending detailed reports, we tend to investigate." I hope that's not a problem. Not at all, Rextel said smoothly. We were just finalizing diplomatic arrangements with Commander Wright's team. Your arrival presents an opportunity to expand these discussions. While the official welcome continued, Olivia quietly updated one of the Pathfinder science officers about their discovery regarding serpenthex in human biology. The news spread quickly among the new arrivals. Later, in a private meeting room, Ethan, Lisa, and several key officers from both ships met with the Zulaxian leadership. Earth is concerned about the nature of our relationship moving forward, Lisa said directly. We've reviewed the information Commander Wright has been allowed to send, and we have questions about the initial detention of his crew. Rextal's head slits narrowed slightly, a security precaution that proved unnecessary. We have since established that humans pose no threat to the Zulaxian Empire. No direct threat, added Secondary Commander Kavener, who had been quiet until now. But your biological uniqueness presents ... complications, Lisa leaned forward. You mean our immunity to your poison? Yes, I've been briefed on that. The Zulaxians exchanged glances. They had hoped to control how widely this information spread. Captain Freeman, Vrextel said carefully, the stability of 12-star systems depends on certain ... established relationships. The knowledge of human immunity to serpenthex could disrupt those relationships. That sounds like your problem, not ours, Lisa replied bluntly. We came here to explore, not to get involved in imperial politics. Ethan intervened before tensions could escalate. What the High Commander means is that we've been discussing a possible alliance that could benefit both our species. Earth gets access to advanced technology and new scientific knowledge, while the Zulaxians get ... our discretion. Kevin Morris, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. And they need our help with their rebellion problem. All eyes turned. To him, Ethan looked surprised. What rebellion problem? Kevin had been drinking small amounts of serpenthex regularly since discovering its calming effect on his anxiety. The Zulaxians had provided it to him after Zixtel confirmed it was safe for human consumption. What no one had expected was how it enhanced his perception and pattern recognition. It's in the station communications, Kevin explained. I've been listening during my walks. 3 planets in the outer systems have stopped sending regular tributes. There are military vessels being redirected to those sectors. And yesterday I heard 2 officers discussing something called the Drozik situation. Vrextal stood abruptly. You have been monitoring secure communications? Not intentionally, Kevin said. The serpenthex seems to help me notice patterns. I just started understanding more of your language than the translators pick up. Lisa looked at Ethan with raised eyebrows. You've been letting him drink their poison? It's not poison to us, Olivia explained. In fact, it enhances certain cognitive functions. Kevin's anxiety is gone, and apparently his pattern recognition has improved dramatically. This revelation caused another flurry of whispered conversations among the Zulaxians. Finally, Vrextel made a decision. It seems transparency is now necessary. He said, yes, there are disturbances in the outer systems. Subject species who have heard rumors about humans and your immunity, they believe it weakens our position. Does it? Lisa asked directly. The Zulaxian Empire is built on more than just serpenthex, Vrextel insisted. But the psychological impact of its effectiveness has been significant in maintaining order. Ethan saw an opportunity. Perhaps we could help each other. Earth has experience with diplomacy between diverse groups. We could serve as mediators. Mediators? Kavener sounded skeptical. Neutral parties, Ethan explained. We help you transition from rule by intimidation to cooperative alliance. In exchange, we get access to your technology and safe passage through Zulaxian space. Before Vrextel could respond, an alarm sounded. A Zulaxian officer rushed in. High Commander, urgent news from Drozik. The mining facilities have been seized. By rebels, they're demanding independence and threatening to destroy the quantum fold drive production plants. The room fell silent. Quantum fold drives were clearly vital to Zulaxian interstellar travel. How did they manage to take the facilities? Vrextel demanded. The security protocols were bypassed, the officer reported. The rebels had immunity to the defense systems. All eyes turned to the humans. We had nothing to do with this, Ethan said quickly. Not directly, Vrextel agreed. But word of your existence has spread faster than we anticipated. The rebels are claiming they have human allies who will help them resist us, Lisa stood. This is exactly why Earth doesn't get involved in internal affairs of other governments. We came to find our people, not to spark a revolution. Yet that is precisely what your arrival has done, Kevener said bitterly. Kevin, who had been listening carefully, suddenly saw a connection. The Drozic people, they're the ones who mine the materials for your quantum fold drives, aren't they? You need them, but they've always resisted your rule. Serpenthex was your insurance policy. Vrextel's silence confirmed Kevin's assessment. Ethan stood and faced the Zelaxian leaders. You have two choices. Continue trying to suppress this rebellion and likely face more as the news spreads, or work with us to establish a new relationship with your subject worlds, one based on mutual benefit rather than fear. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Captain Lisa Freeman added her voice. Commander Wright is right. This moment was inevitable, with or without humans. Better to guide the change than be destroyed by it. Vrextel looked between the human leaders, then to his own officers. The Zelaxian Empire stood at a crossroads, all because humans could drink their poison like water. The Zelaxian command center buzzed with activity. Screens displayed star maps with flashing red indicators showing trouble spots across the Empire. 3 days had passed since the crisis on Drozic began, and the situation was growing worse. 4 more planets had declared independence, and Zelaxian military vessels were stretched thin trying to maintain control. Commander Ethan Wright stood with Captain Lisa Freeman and High Commander Vrextel, studying the tactical displays. Lieutenant Kevin Morris sat nearby, a cup of diluted serpenthex in his hand. He had become an unexpected asset, his enhanced perception helping identify patterns in the spreading rebellion. The Drozic rebels have contacted 3 other mining worlds, Kevin said, pointing to connections others had missed. They're coordinating their actions. Vrextel's head slits pulsed with stress. Without the quantum fold drive materials from those worlds, our fleet will be grounded within months. You need to open direct negotiations, Ethan suggested again. Before this gets worse, negotiate with rebels? Secondary Commander Kevener objected. It would show weakness. Other worlds would immediately rise up. They're rising up anyway, Lisa pointed out. Because they think they have human allies. We need to clarify our position. Dr. Olivia Martinez entered the command center with lead researcher Zixtel. They had been working together for days, studying the biological interaction between humans and serpenthex. Olivia looked excited. Commander, we've made a breakthrough, she announced. We understand why serpenthex affects humans differently. This isn't the time for scientific discussions, Kevener said dismissively. Actually, it might be exactly the time, Ethan replied. What have you found, Doctor? Olivia projected a holographic display showing molecular structures. Serpenthex contains compounds similar to substances found in common earth plants like coffee and tea. Our bodies evolved to process these compounds as mild stimulants, but there's more. She highlighted a particular molecular chain. This specific structure enhances neural pathways in the human brain related to empathy and communication. Meaning what, exactly? Lisa asked. Meaning, Zixtal continued, that when humans consume serpenthex, they not only remain unharmed, but experience enhanced ability to understand others' perspectives and communicate complex ideas. Kevin nodded. That explains why I've been able to learn the Zelaxian language so quickly and why I feel calmer, more focused. Ethan saw an opportunity. High Commander, I have a proposal. One that might solve both our immediate crisis and establish a new foundation for the future. All eyes turned to him. Let me speak directly to the Drozic rebels, Ethan said. Not as a representative of Earth or the Zelaxian Empire, but as a neutral third party. Someone who understands both sides. And why would they listen to you? Kavener demanded. Because I'm human, Ethan replied simply. The species they believe will help them overthrow Zulaxian rule. I can clarify our actual position, Rextal considered this. And what would you tell them? The truth. That Earth has no interest in galactic conquest or in destabilizing the region. But also that we believe in self-determination and fair treatment. For all intelligent species, Lisa stepped forward. I should go too. As the captain of the Pathfinder, my words carry the authority of Earth's governments. After much debate, Rextal agreed. A small shuttle was prepared to take Ethan, Lisa, and Kevin to Drozik. Kevin's enhanced ability to understand Zulaxian languages might prove useful in communicating with the rebels, many of whom spoke dialects. The standard translators struggled with Dot as they prepared to depart. Olivia pulled Ethan aside. There's something else you should know? The Zulaxians have been using Serpenthex for so long that they've developed a dependency on it. What do you mean? They use it in small amounts to maintain their hierarchical social structure. The higher ranks consume more, which enhances their ability to command. Without it, their entire society might collapse. Ethan absorbed this new information. So they're not just losing a weapon, they're losing the glue that holds their empire together? Exactly. That's why this is so threatening to them. The journey to Drozik took 12 hours using conventional drives. When they arrived, they found a mining world with a toxic atmosphere. The Drozikians lived in sealed underground cities, forced to extract the rare minerals the Zulaxians needed for their technology. The rebel leader, Elder Kraz, agreed to meet them in a neutral facility. He was a tall, thin being with pale green skin and 4 arms, clearly adapted for mining work. His eyes were large and entirely black, evolved for seeing in dim light. So, the poison drinkers have come, Kraz said when they entered. We have. Heard much about you. Not all of it accurate, I imagine, Ethan replied. We're not here to help overthrow the Zulaxian Empire. Kraz's expression darkened. Then you side with our oppressors? We don't take sides, Lisa clarified. We're explorers, who accidentally discovered we're immune to Serpenthex. We had no intention of disrupting the political balance here. Kevin, who had been studying the room and the guards, suddenly spoke in the native Drozikian dialect, surprising everyone. Your people have suffered. We understand this. But total war will bring more suffering. Kraz stared at Kevin. You speak. Our tongue. How is this possible? Serpenthex, Kevin explained, tapping his temple. It helps me understand languages more quickly. This revelation changed the tone of the meeting. For the next several hours, they discussed the grievances of the Drozikian people, the harsh mining quotas, the restricted living conditions, the threat of Serpenthex always hanging over them. What we propose, Ethan finally said, is a new arrangement, not independence, but partnership. Your people provide the materials the Zulaxians need, but at fair prices and with better conditions. In return, you gain representation in a new galactic council. And why would the Zulaxians agree to this? Kraz asked skeptically. Because the alternative is the collapse of their empire, Lisa said bluntly. Without your materials, their technology fails. Without their technology, they lose control of everything. And you would enforce this arrangement? Kraz pressed. We would help establish it, Ethan clarified. Earth has no desire to become galactic police. But we would serve as mediators during the transition. Our immunity to Serpenthex makes us uniquely qualified to ensure fair treatment for all parties. After much negotiation, Elder Kraz agreed to a provisional ceasefire. Similar talks were opened with other rebellious worlds, with humans always serving as intermediaries. 3 months later, representatives from 17 species gathered on the Zulaxian Central Station to sign what became known as the Galactic Concordat. The Zulaxian Empire was dissolved and replaced by the Concordat of Worlds, a cooperative alliance with shared governance and trade agreements. High Commander Vrextal, now bearing the title of First Speaker, stood beside Commander Ethan Wright, as they watched the delegates file into the Grand Chamber. Your arrival changed everything, Vrextal said quietly. When you drank our poison like water, you did more than survive. you transformed an empire. Ethan nodded. Sometimes the smallest biological quirk can have the biggest consequences. As the ceremony began, Dr. Olivia Martinez presented her final research on Serpenthex. It would now be used in a new way, not as a weapon or tool of control, but as a means of enhancing communication between species. In small, carefully measured doses, it helped many species better understand each other's perspectives. Lieutenant Kevin Morris, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Concordat, no longer counted his steps when anxious. Instead, he helped count the votes as new proposals were brought before the Council, and on Earth, news of humanity's unexpected role in reshaping a distant sector of the galaxy was met with wonder and pride. What might have been a simple exploration mission had become the first step toward humanity's place in a much larger community of intelligent beings, all because humans could drink alien poison like water